I'm seeing New Hampshire, New York. Oh, thanks. My Daruma wish. Yeah. Um, yeah, go ahead and put your state in the chat. It looks like Max is on now, so I may turn it over to him.
Yep, thank you, Jade. Computer issues as always. So thank you everyone for joining. We'll get started now and just as we go through this Q&A forum, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll address them in chronological order. So happy to have everyone here. We're really excited to be launching this Business Builder program with the Northeast Regional Food Business Center. As a reminder, applications remain open until April 7th, and we'll go a little more into the logistics of that. But in this call, we'll just be giving an overview of the program and some of our frequently asked questions, and then provide a forum for you all to ask any eligibility or application related questions. So this session will be recorded and will be made available online. And as I mentioned before, feel free to type some questions in the chat as we go along. So for a quick summary of the RFBC program, there are currently 12 around the country, and you can see in the green in the top right, that is our area. So it includes all the way from DC up to Maine. And then the center leadership, some of whom are on this call today, including Jade Umberger and Janice Sproul from NASA Foundation, are leading the center. So the NASA Foundation, Buffalo Go Green, Cornell University's Center for Regional Economic Advancement, the New York State Department of Ag and Markets, and the Maine Department of Ag Conservation and Forestry. So we have 4 center objectives, and part of this will come into play as you go through your application. So first, coordinating a regional network of Northeast system partners, increasing the amount and range of regionally grown products and food businesses, which is really where this Business Builder grant fits in. Increasing the capacity of regional supply chains, which is also one of the purposes of the Business Builder grant, and then building sustainability into the center activities. So a couple of different objectives, and I think we've built those into the application as well. So I will just give a quick overview of what that timeline looks like. Applications opened in April 24th and will close on April 7th at 4:59 p.m. Eastern Time. Again, we're hosting these information sessions. The last one will be held next week on Thursday. And then there will be an announcement of subawardees in July, and projects can commence in August. So we'll go a little more into what some eligibility criteria looks like and eligible businesses, but just as a quick overview of the 3 different tracks and kind of what distinguishes each of them. Track 1 is really for special purpose equipment. So this can be the equipment itself, along with associated technical assistance, installation costs, and maintenance. The amount ranges from 25,000 as the base to 50,000, and farm and food businesses, including fisheries, with 350,000 or less in annual revenue are eligible for that track. Track 2 is more toward technical assistance or training, be that food safety or how to use specific pieces of equipment. That has a slightly smaller amount, so from 15,000 to 25,000, but the same eligibility in terms of annual revenue. And then the last one is kind of a catch-all or a mix between tracks 1 and 2. So you can use this to either purchase special purpose equipment, you can use it for technical assistance, you can use it for a combination of both. The amount is greater than both tracks 1 and 2, so you can be awarded between 50,000 and 100,000. And there's also a higher eligibility threshold, so farm and food businesses with $1 million or less in annual revenue. Across all 3 tracks, projects must be completed by August 31st, 2027. And if you do have any questions about which track best fits your project, feel free to reach out to us and we'll give details on how to do so in a later slide. In terms of not allowable funding uses, so across all three tracks, you aren't able to use the Business Builder Grant to purchase land, buildings, or real estate for construction, demolition, or major rehabilitation of a building, structure, or land. For general purpose equipment, and can always go more into what that specifically looks like related to your project or your business. And then production related costs from seeds to fertilizer. As a reminder, the Business Builder Grant is really focused on that post harvest section of the food value chain. So production related costs are not eligible. So we have various resources to help you apply, from the recording of these information sessions. We also had an application launch webinar recording. On the Business Builder subaward page, you can see the request for application. You can see the scoring rubric, the application checklist, frequently asked questions. You will also be required to obtain a unique entity ID or show proof that you are in the progress of obtaining one. And in the application checklist, you can see both a quick guide on how to get a UEI and also a YouTube step-by-step. If you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at northeastrfbc@nasda.org. And then I would encourage you, if you haven't already, to subscribe to the Regional Food Business Center newsletter, where we'll be giving updates on additional funding rounds and kind of other resources related to the center. So with that, I will turn it to my colleague, Jade Umberger, who will kind of walk through some of the most commonly asked questions that we've been getting before opening it up to the floor. So Jade, take it away.
Thanks, Max. I've been trying to do some quick answering in the chat, but this might get to a few of them. So, what are the differences between the three funding tracks? As Max sort of went over, track one is for special equipment. So, this is purchases of special equipment or any training or installation that needs to happen alongside that. Small businesses, that's our center definition of a gross revenue of 350,000 or less. And this track covers from 25,000 to $50,000 per award. Track two is business development for that same small business group of businesses, revenue of $350,000 or less. And this is $15,000 to $25,000 per award for business development. So the first one, special equipment, is like tangible items that you need for your business. Track two is business development, things like market analyses, succession planning, marketing, anything that you need that's maybe not an actual item, equipment. And then track three is both of those together. People that need both equipment and development or technical assistance services for product and market expansion for their business. And this one is opened up to mid-sized businesses, which our definition of that is $1 million or less. And then this is up to $100,000 per award. Next question. The next question is, can I use my business builder grant to improve my farming operations, like planting and cultivating? No. Project activities and expenses must be used for post-harvest activities only. So even though you may be expanding your business by growing another vegetable, if you're like, I'm a carrot farmer and I really want to grow tomatoes too, that is expanding your business, but we can't fund anything that deals with tomato seeds, soil enhancers, tractors, anything like that. It has to be post-harvest after you've picked that tomato. And other examples that may not be as easy, but after someone has taken a cow onto a trailer out of the field to process, that kind of stuff. Can I receive an upfront payment for the award? The center's default method for payment is reimbursement, but the center may be able to facilitate advanced payments on a case-by-case basis. So you will flag this if this sounds like you, if you are not able to do this award by reimbursement, you can flag this in your application and we will get back to you and have a little more conversation about what that means. What are some examples of items and activities that are eligible, sorry, for funding? So, like I was talking about in those tracks, things that are eligible include special use equipment. So, some examples are wash and pack stations, refrigerated vans, food safety upgrades, cold storage units and ice machines, grading equipment, and hoppers and hoist. So those are just some examples. There can be many more. Examples of services include business strategy development, supply chain analysis, risk assessment, food safety training, value chain coordination, market analysis, product development, and staff time. So this can be both contracted work or time for your staff to be trained or do some of this work, or you yourself as an operator. What are some examples of businesses that are eligible for funding? Businesses that are eligible include producers, so farmers, ranchers, fisheries, aquaculture, processors, distributors, and aggregators, retail outlets, grocery stores, and restaurants, both institutions and nonprofits and cooperatives. So if you are making money through a program where you're producing food, you are eligible.
Great. I think appreciate that, Jade. And I see we already have a lot of questions popping up in the chat, so we will get started with that. If you do prefer to have your question or ask your question by voice, you can always use the raise hand feature, which is under reactions, and we'll get to you there as well. So I see one of the questions we've received is, do drinks and supplements fit into eligible products?
Yeah, I can take this one. This is a great question. It raises, we have a lot of people ask about, I'm trying special products. What am I thinking of? I'm thinking of a certain, anyway, specialty products. So these are things like specialty products, honey, maple syrup, things that aren't always in a list of agricultural products, but anything that is food for human consumption is eligible. So drinks and supplements would be eligible.
And
Great.
just to
Thank
follow
you.
up to that question, oh, actually, I'm sorry, you answered it. Never mind. Apologies.
No, please go ahead.
Just wondering, so for human consumption, I think that's the detail I needed. Thank you.
Yep. Is this, I didn't see who was asking. Is this Omar? Were you asking about confections?
No, this is Tony Hall.
Oh,
I work at a food processing center, and I'm also a farmer who owns a drink business.
oh yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, and folks have asked too about alcohol, and alcohol is eligible. We have a couple brewers that have put in applications, which is exciting.
Great. And going off that, for confections food businesses, they would be eligible as well. Great. Some more questions that we've received. Could you clarify what is meant by minor rearrangement or alterations of existing building? Would it include extending a kitchen space by pouring a 12-foot by 12-foot cement pad and building a small room extension?
Yes, so that would be a major rearrangement or alterations. I would consider that construction. Anything that is ground disturbing. So anything where you would have to pour cement, generally, anything where you're putting up four walls. I guess this may be three walls, but this I would consider major construction or construction. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So another question was, do projects involving more than one farm, are they valued higher than a single farm project?
They are not. I would say that would be up to the reviewer. We don't have any review criteria that would give more points to a project involving more than one farm.
Another question is on eligibility. Would a vehicle used to transport product to markets and or to wholesale purchasers be an eligible equipment expense, even if it is not a refrigerated van?
Yeah, this gets into if you read through sort of the finer print in the RFA, there's a difference between general equipment and specialized equipment. So a refrigerated van would be specialized equipment because it's used specifically to transport food. Um, General purpose vehicles like pickup trucks, a regular van, are considered general purpose equipment and not eligible. So if there is something about the vehicle that makes it specific to your business, specific to transporting food, goods, then it is eligible, but a regular pickup truck, regular van would not be eligible. And Stephanie, I see Stephanie Smith asked this question. If you have an example or something to go off of, let us know either in a comment or follow up via email.
The next question is from Rebecca, and I see this is kind of a specific question, so I'll just, I think, speak broadly, but feel free to follow up with us if you have additional questions. So I would say that, you're always welcome to apply to multiple funding rounds, even if you receive funding in this first round, provided that it doesn't exceed 100,000 across funding rounds. I would say that if you look at the scoring rubric, one of the criteria is kind of ability to execute this project and business capacity. So I would make sure that you kind of are prepared to use this purchase. And yeah, if you have additional questions or kind of thoughts about what your project would look like, feel free to email that over to us. But I would say that there's no difference in likelihood of getting a grant if you got a grant before you applied to receive one in the first round. So the next question we received is from Mero, and so this is about a nonprofit looking to get special use equipment. So would they be limited to track 3 due to their organization's funds, or are they able to apply under track 1 and 2 because of the small businesses that they work with?
So this one, I don't know. Oh, Max, were you gonna do that one? I don't want to step on your toes.
No, go for it.
This one is an interesting question, so I can answer it sort of in two ways. Just based off of you, if an organization is applying on behalf of other organizations, you would need to consider the applicant organization's funding, gross revenue, to see which track you would be able to apply to. Um, However, Marrow, it sounds like you're a nonprofit, and so we have had some feedback from other nonprofits about how an overall nonprofit budget um, could box an organization out of this funding. And so, if you are a nonprofit and this specific program within your nonprofit makes less than $1 million or less than $350,000, and your funding for that program does not benefit your overall organization, and you don't plan on using any of the funding from this grant to benefit your overall organization, you can choose to use just your program's budget in deciding if you're eligible for which track. And I hope that makes sense. I know that was a lot of words. But if it doesn't, feel free to follow up and we can further explain.
Yeah, and I see there are a couple hands up maybe related to this question. So Jeffrey, feel free to come off mute first.
Yeah, thank you, Max. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Hi, Jade. The question was, I went over the PDF version of the application with my assistant, and we went back over it quickly. I'm not quite sure where an area might be to put supporting documents as a DBA for a Schedule C. How do we verify maximum gross income for this application?
That is a good question. We are asking nonprofits to upload their 990s. But really we're asking you to tell the truth. We're asking you to sign off on it and saying, hey, this is our income. There's a spot at the bottom that says, I acknowledge all of this to be true. So,
Yep. Okay, very good. Thank you.
yep. We
Great.
trust you all, you know?
Well,
Yeah. Jack, I see your hand is up as well.
Yes, thank you. First off, appreciate you guys hosting this. This has been very insightful so far. I'd asked this question earlier in the chat and apologize if I missed it, but I have a unique identifier through Dun and Bradstreet, a DUNS number, and that's what's currently used by the FDA to identify my facility and legal entity. Is that an acceptable means of unique identifier for this application, or do I need to use the SAM example that you folks provided?
I am not familiar with this specific instance, but it seems like if you have a UEI, that would be the one you would use. I would just suggest, I'm going to drop it in the chat, suggest going on sam.gov and seeing if that number pops up for your business. Um, because what we'll be doing is as we get applications, we're going to be looking, Max and Jana and I are going to be looking through each one and confirming that each organization, each applicant has a UEI. So what we're going to be doing is going through sam.gov and taking that UEI from your application and confirming on the website. So if it comes up on the website, that's the best way to check.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Yep, no problem. Thanks for joining.
And Jade, real quick, this is Tiffany. Hi, everyone. I work in collaboration with the folks at NASDA. Just to be clear that the EIN number is separate and distinct from your UEI. So this should be a 12-digit alphanumeric code. So if that brings any more clarity to folks, hopefully it does. And if you don't have that, you can just, start the process of getting that.
Yeah, thanks, Tiffany. Appreciate that. I did not, all of the letters have
I know,
like
so many
it's like
acronyms.
UEI, EIN. Yeah, so if you have an EIN, you should be able to get a UEI very easily on sam.gov. So yes, please register on sam.gov.
Great. And really quickly, I see Amero has their hand up. Feel free to come off mute. I know this question was related to your question.
Yes, hi. Thank you for letting me speak. Just a quick question. So we have, as a nonprofit, we work with multiple partners. So do you want us to elect specific partners that we're going to represent here, even though the equipment would benefit other individuals that we work with?
I think that would just be up to your own I like assess what the situation is going to be and maybe who's going to own that equipment. Um, I think that's your decision to make. I don't think that there's an any negative I would see either way, or positive I would see either way.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Great. I'm gonna run through some more questions in the chat and then I'll get to the folks that have their hands up. But another question we received is, for a shared kitchen, do trainings for people using the kitchen count, or would it just be for the staff running the shared kitchen?
Can you
I
repeat that?
see Jade is thinking on that, so we'll get back to you on that. But I think another question we've received a lot is around nonprofits. So the question here is, if you have a nonprofit with a revenue generating business project that is eligible, do you count the entire 501c3 budget or the business project revenue? So great question. So the revenue from the program rather than the overall organizational revenue can be used, provided two things. So one, if the grant funding will not be used outside of the program, and also if profits from that program don't fund the overall organization. So please let me know if that's confusing and if you need further clarification, but we have gotten that question a number of times from nonprofits. So Jade, I'll throw it back to you in case you have answer to that.
No, I don't think so. I uh got deep into looking at all the other questions. I did want to add, because we were talking about UEIs, you don't have to have a UEI at the time of application. That's preferred, obviously. But if you can show via screenshot of an email or a screenshot of a website that you are in the process of getting a UEI. So if you have a reference number as you're applying to get a UEI, we will accept that in the application. Because I know it can take a while. So I wanted to address that.
Great. And Maria, we will get back to you on the shared kitchen either right now or by email. So Sarah has a question about nonprofit organizations that distribute food to emergency food sites and the question of refrigerated van being eligible.
Yeah, that seems like that is an eligible expense or a refrigerated van. Yes. Yeah.
Great. Next question is on reporting requirements. So you can find those on the RFA, and if you are ultimately awarded, we will have sessions on that. Unsuccessful applicants receiving feedback on their application, yes, that is our goal. Our goal is to either help you improve your application for a future round or help secure external funding sources. So yes. Can you provide some examples of eligible projects that restaurants can or have applied for?
Hmm. Um, this could be something like if you are working with a producer to process, because that's what I view restaurants as processors, right? Or I guess retailers too. So if you're working with a farmer to, I'm trying to think of like a if you're working with a farmer that grows chestnuts and you've never worked with chestnuts in your facility before, and you really want to have this process, you can apply for specialized equipment to process these chestnuts or whatever the produce is, whatever the Northeast the product from the Northeast is. You could work with someone to do a market analysis. Do your customers even want this product? You can do food safety testing. You can do recipe development. Um, I hope those are some good examples.
Great, thank you. All right, another question is, would expenses related to opening a second brick and mortar retail shop or production kitchen, including initial rental expenses, be eligible?
Rental expenses are eligible for the duration of the grant. So the grants are 2 years. Um, and yes, rental space is eligible.
Um, there's another question about letters of support and commitment. Those are
Mm.
not required in this application. And we have another question about if energy efficiency upgrades for pack houses would be eligible, if there was a clear way to demonstrate cost savings.
Yes, absolutely.
Great.
Um,
For a shared kitchen, are there any kitchen equipment that would be considered general purpose, or would all kitchen
mm.
equipment fall under the specialized equipment category?
I think that all kitchen equipment would be considered specialized equipment. And it would be helpful if in your application you were able to expand upon that and say, this is exactly what we're going to be using it for. These are the regional products that we're going to be using, and this is why we need this equipment.
Great. Is the geographic area question asking about current area or potential area that a business will expand to?
I would say current. I could see expansion. However, that might not. Um, I'm trying to think of the exact wording in the eligibility question. Um, I'm gonna go with current.
Yeah. All right, a couple of questions I think I can quickly knock out. So would a pre-assembled freezer unit be considered construction if it would be placed on an existing cement pad? I will say yes, that, or no, that isn't considered construction. Yes, that is eligible. adding south-facing windows to a barn would not be eligible, and that would be considered kind of renovation or construction. If we are in a if we are a nonprofit that does a variety of things, food and not food related, and are working with various farmers and food producers, would we be eligible? Yes. You don't have to be a nonprofit that's just limited to food and farm programming. Yeah. Does this grant cover any kind of employee wages or hiring opportunities? I'll pass that to Jade.
Yeah, so yes and yes. If you are looking to hire someone to do some marketing for your organization, if you for a specific product, um, if you're looking to use some staff time for recipe development, um, yes, staff time and hiring of an employee are eligible, and with the caveat that it's only for those 2 years or only for the project period.
Great, thank you. All right, another question is, can the equipment be used?
Yes, the equipment can be used. And I think that it's popped up a couple times. We do not need a quote. However, it might be it, if you have a quote, it might be good to put that in the application because it shows like project readiness, business readiness.
Great. And I see we're kind of at the halfway point and have a lot of messages, so we'll try to do a lightning round. And if you do have additional questions, feel free to reach out to us by email. And I will find the slide where we have that, northeastrpc@nasa.org, or you can use a QR code. So does having received a SARE grant count as having received direct federal grant funding from USDA? SARE is funded by NIFA, so that would be considered part of USDA funding. Would the purchase of a food trailer or food truck by a farm to increase direct-to-consumer prepared food sales be eligible? The answer is yes. And let's see, could this be used to subsidize food prices? That's a good question.
I don't believe so. I think I would need more information about what you're trying to do.
Do solar panels qualify or any kind of electrical upgrades that allows cost savings?
Yes, if you can make the argument in your application that it is benefiting the your business by increasing capacity, yes.
Great. Can you apply to multiple tracks or just one? Unfortunately, you can only apply to one track for this application. So if in a future funding round, if you decide you need something else, you can apply to a different track. If awarded a grant, how long to spend the funds? Does it expire? So you'll need to use the funds by 2027, and we had that slide up there. But yeah, you can begin your projects in August of this year, and then have to use those funds by 2027.
Yeah. And I can expand upon that a little bit because I see a couple questions in the chat. It doesn't have to be 2 years. It can be 6 months. It could be a year. It doesn't have to take up the entire 2 years, up to 24 months. But you will have to end before July 2027.
Great. Another question is, if a single owner has two different businesses, can they apply for both?
Yeah. I guess we're tracking by back to the letters UEIs. So if you have two separate UEIs, you can apply twice.
Great. Another question is, we're hoping to apply for track 2 to create a food and farm fellowship for students. Funding would help us create and implement the fellowship. Would a program like this be eligible?
If you can make the argument that it will increase business capacity, new markets, more production, yes.
Great. All right. Another question is about past federal funding. So I have not received funding for this business, but my husband and I have received USDA funding for our dairy farm, which is a separate business. Is that considered part of the $25,000?
If it's a separate business, it doesn't need to be considered.
Great. All right. Another question is about flowers. Unfortunately, those are not considered food products for human consumption. So I see that this is a cut flower cooperative, but this would apply to all flower operations. So let's see. There's another question. Describe the specialized equipment and or training you are requesting and its function in your operations. So what happens if required equipment or training is not being requested? I think that you would probably be requesting either equipment or training, but please reach out to this email if you have a specific kind of project proposal and something that seems confusing to you. For clarification, is anything applicable under tracks 1 and 2 also eligible for track 3?
Yes.
Great. And for purposes of building a project budget, would lab testing for food safety be considered a contractual service or a custom budget line?
I can see either. It's up to you. I would think, I don't know. Yeah, there is no positive or negative to put it in either.
Great. Another person is asking about the portal. So looking to set up an account in the portal. So I think we can follow up with you, but I will also drop in the chat the specific portal link, and there you'll go under new applicants to that link to fill out the eligibility quiz. So yeah. Let's see. Is we do have a question. We have received this question a number of times about is this funding guaranteed with all the federal funding cuts and freezes?
Mm. So that is a sticky answer. Up to this point, we have been operating as usual, as normal. All of our reimbursements have come in as normal, but obviously we're following the situation, and know that it's a little bit of it's a lot of bit of a concern for a lot of us. So we will be operating as normal until USDA says otherwise,
Great.
and have not been impacted so far.
Can tracks 2 or 3 be used to fund a market manager and or post-harvest staff?
Yes, post-harvest staff and market manager would both be eligible, but again, only for those 2 years, or up until the project ends.
Yeah. We have a number of comments about UEIs. So again, in our application checklist, there's a quick guide and a YouTube video on getting one. If you aren't able to obtain one by the time applications close, that is okay, provided that you provide proof that you've, submitted the form, even if they haven't gotten back to you. I know that it's taking some time. So let's see what other questions. If my husband and a farmhand have to do the installation and maintenance of the new equipment, can I allot payment for them in the budget?
Yes, can you repeat that real quick? Sorry.
Yeah, it's just if there's installation and maintenance required for new equipment, can the farm owner's husband and their farmhand be included as kind of income or staff time?
Yes, that is staff time, so that's eligible.
Can this funding work for specialized equipment that the applying entity will have to build because it's not available from a supplier?
Yes, if it's post-harvest equipment.
Great. Another question, how should we answer the equal access and geography questions as a nonprofit since we do not have an individual business owner?
You would answer it as like the lead of your organization.
All right, a couple more questions. In which ways do we show quotes for equipment or contracted work provided to support the proposed budget? So I'll stop with there.
Yeah, that you can add that in the application under additional documentation. There's a place to upload.
And then a follow-up is, do we need to show quotes for all equipment and contracted work?
No, you do not need to show quotes. We are not requiring quotes. It may be helpful in showing that your project, that you're ready to go, that your business is ready to go. So uh, you don't need to add quotes, but you can.
Great. Another question is, for refrigerated vehicles, would preference be given to pitches for electrical vehicles rather than internal combustion?
Yeah, if it is a specialized vehicle, and it's within if it's included in your budget and you are your project is awarded, then yes, that's eligible.
Great. We have a question about eligibility for a nonprofit restaurant, a pay-as-you-can community cafe that would be an eligible business. Do changes to the farm kitchen in order to get a kitchen license qualify?
Yes, that would be food safety improvements, and so yes, that would qualify.
Great. Um, uh, there's also a similar question, would retrofitting an existing a van with refrigeration qualify?
That may be considered construction. I would have to look into that.
Great. And yeah, if you reach out to us with your email, we can give you a specific confirmation for that. Can the project be only 1 year, or does it have to be 2 years?
It does not have to be 2 years, it can just be one.
Great. Are display doors in a walk-in cooler or freezer box unit eligible?
I'm leaning to say this is construction, um, but would need more information. And if you can make the argument that it's building your capacity or allowing you to produce or sell more, then I could see it.
And feel free to reach out to us again by email
Mhm.
if you'd like further confirmation. Another question is on staffing. So this individual needs more staff this year to operate their farm stand and expand hours. Would that be eligible?
Yes.
Great. Does having received past USDA funding over $25,000 make you ineligible for funding? The answer is no. And in the RFA, that clause is kind of about prioritization of applications rather than complete ineligibility. And basically, the way that scoring will work is we'll kind of look first to those businesses that have received less than 25,000. I believe we're looking to fund around 60% of this first round for those businesses. But then the other 40+% will be for businesses that have received over 25,000 in grants from USDA. And speaking of that, there is a question about round two and when it will be.
Yeah, that's a good question. If all goes well, same time next year. Maybe.
Does the eligibility need to be completed in one sitting, or can the portal be revisited before finalizing a submission?
The eligibility quiz is pretty quick, and so you can get through that pretty quickly. The application itself needs to be saved as you go along. So you can come back to it, but you should save as you're going. Tiffany, do you have anything to add to this?
No, I mean the eligibility quiz is, I think it's we have 5 or 6 questions in there, so that can't be revisited. If you kind of abandon that, you'll have to start it over. But yes, like Jade said, the application itself can be revisited with the caveat that it does not auto-save, so please save your work as you go. But yeah, the application is really the part that you'll want to revisit because that's where your lengthy answers will go.
Great.
Thanks, Tiffany.
All right, speed running through a couple more. Cargo vans are eligible, and in terms of kind of that post-harvest definition, kind of produce cleaning, packaging, processing, those all are considered post-harvest. So another question is, if a refrigerated van is part of our market expansion, can we apply for the van under track 3 with other expenses, or would we need to apply under track 1? So you are able to apply for multiple purchases. You can apply for specialized equipment and technical assistance associated with that. So you don't have to limit yourself to just that refrigerated van. And let me pause the comments right now. I see Janet Lee has their hand up, so feel free to come off mute and ask your question.
Thank you. I don't, this doesn't have to do with the program itself. It's the portal. My experience with federal and state, I live in Vermont, and state portals is that my client, well, I'm a grant writer, my client would set up the account and then they would request me to be like a grant reviewer or editor. And I wasn't able to get that far. I didn't want to set anything up until I really understood it. So what is the best way to get me in there for my client?
Tiffany, I'm going to toss that to you.
Yeah, I would say the best way for you to get in is for your client to complete the eligibility quiz and registration. So they will be the overall point of contact and say like the business owner in that situation or the nonprofit lead. And then what they can do is send us an email to request that you're an additional person on that, and then you can make edits to it in terms of the full application. Because the eligibility and the registration is very basic information, and since you're the grant writer, you'd be more collaborating on the application itself.
Right, right. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Great, thank you, Tiffany. So I'm going to run through some of these last questions, and then we can get to more questions if you want to raise your hand. So as the farm owner, is my time also eligible for training by an expert? The answer is yes. It can be for either your employees or yourself if you're contracting out for technical assistance. Can you share examples of vehicle use to transport from the farm to a storage facility that is not refrigerated, but that would qualify?
Sorry, I was looking at other questions. I'm easily distracted by all of these questions. They're so good.
No worries. The question is kind of, what is an eligible vehicle versus a non-eligible vehicle?
So a general equipment vehicle would be something like a pickup truck, a regular sedan, something that is not specific to food transportation. So I think for right now we talk a lot about refrigerated vans, freezer vans. If you have a vehicle that you're interested in getting with these funding, with this funding, I would send us an email and be very specific about what you're interested in, and we can let you know if it's eligible or not. Or if you have your example right now, let us know.
Another question is about whether portable refrigeration units would be eligible.
Yes, I believe so.
Um,
That's a van. Yeah? No, I don't know.
And there's also a question about aquaculture operations, and I think this is really important. So yes, aquaculture operations are eligible, and variations of that, fisheries businesses. Kind of an oyster sorter counter would be considered a post-harvest expenses. And if you have any other specific eligibility questions, feel free to reach out. There's a question about farmers in Virginia or just in general knowing when other regions will be offering this type of funding. That's a great question. And if you go on, if you just type in regional food business centers, the USDA has a running list of all the centers and which have their application portals open or when they're planning to open one. So I would encourage you to reference that. Again, there's a question about if a nonprofit obtains finished products from local processors and processes them in their kitchen, does it qualify for kitchen equipment? I will read that again.
Yeah, sorry. Okay.
Yeah. If a nonprofit obtains finished products from local processors and processes them in their kitchen, would it qualify as kitchen equipment or as special purpose equipment?
Yes, that would be special purpose.
Great. Um, and then where can I find the quiz? I'll drop that in the chat as well. There is a question. Can you clarify regarding prior USDA funding? For example, receiving a $30,000 grant in 2025 from SARE, would that make them ineligible? So it doesn't make you ineligible, but basically what it means is for folks that have received over $25,000 in grants from USDA, they will kind of go into a separate pool. So we're looking to allocate around 60% of this $10 million funding to folks that haven't received 25,000 and above. If we don't get to that number, or once we get to that number, then the 40+% remaining will go to everyone else who has received more than $25,000 in grant funding. And there is a follow-up on that. In what timeline regarding the USDA grants is that forever, or is there a specific time period? I'll refer to Jade for that.
Yeah, I think that we said within the past 5 years.
Great. All right, those are all the questions I see in the chat. Feel free to keep them coming, but I will go to those that have their hands up as well. So Shamil, I see your hand is up. Feel free to come off mute.
Hi, how's it going, Max? So my question, right, is kind of like, suppose, let's say we get the grant, right, or before we get the grant, let's say we're requesting $50,000 or $100,000 worth of funding for special equipment, and we want to get a bridge loan to cover it. Would we be able to tie the grant to the loan? And second thing is that while we're planning out for the loan, let's say we're recovering these equipment and it's not guaranteed that we're going to get it, right? So can we in the loan say, okay, we're going to get all these equipment, right? And if you don't get the loan, we're just going to go through with it. And if we do get if you don't get the grant, we're going to go through with it. Like, does it make the project still eligible?
That's a good question. I feel like the root of this is so we cannot cover equipment that was purchased before the project start date, and the contract would start in sometime in August after we get through all of the review stage. And so it sounds like you're asking if you can get a loan to cover things that you have purchased prior to the project start date. Is that correct? No.
No. So before we get a finalized for the loan, right? We have to say, okay, we're buying all the equipment. So we're not initially buying it, but we're putting it on the sheet that we're going to buy it, and we might get funding for it, but we won't buy it yet. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. So I would say this would be something that you might add in as information on the grant application, just saying that you're prepared to use a loan and that you're in the process of applying for one should you receive grant funding.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
I guess so. So that as long as you guys know that we're planning on it, it's okay. So at least everything's clear, right, to everyone involved.
Yes. Yeah, and yeah, just be clear, and you absolutely can use a loan to supplement or complement this grant funding, if that's your question.
I'm just thinking about bridging it over, you know, and then if we're gonna go through with it anyway, I would think that they would want to start at least setting it up before we get awarded. This way, once we get awarded, we're already set to go. We're not like, okay, now we're awarded, now we have to wait, you know, a month or two to get approved.
Yep.
Great. All right. I'm gonna run through the last questions in the comments up till Karen, and then cut it off. And Jeffrey, I'll stay on after. But just want to say that this webinar will be available online, the recording. We also have an additional one next week. If we didn't answer your question, or if you have additional ones, feel free to reach out to northeastrfbc@nasa.org, and we're happy to chat with you. So some last questions. Again, your time is eligible for training by an expert. If you are contracting out technical assistance to train you, that is eligible. You can apply for multiple things. It can be both specialized equipment and renting a facility or funding for staffing. The USDA kind of $25,000 threshold, I believe, is for all areas of USDA funding, not specific to value added. So it would include others. But Jade, are we confirmed on that?
Yeah, so anything that's not disaster relief specific, I'm trying to find the yeah, so the center will prioritize individuals and business owners who have never previously received direct USDA grants. So this is directly from USDA, not a state, not another program, of more than $25,000, excluding loans, disaster relief, or pandemic related payments.
Great, thank you. All right, and then the last two questions
Stephanie.
from Karen: portable refrigeration unit, that would be considered specialized equipment, so that's acceptable. And yes, M. Marrow, you can select yes and kind of show or demonstrate that the program is making less than $1 million and that you're only using the funds for that specific program of your nonprofit. Sorry if we missed you. These are great questions, and I know that we've really enjoyed this. It makes us think about test eligibility questions. So if you have further, please reach out to us by email. This webinar will be made available online. We also, under the past events tab of our webpage, have the pre-recorded webinar with many of these same slides to help you kind of go through what resources are available to help you apply and what the distinctions are between the three funding tracks. So with that, thank you everyone for joining us. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and look forward to seeing you either next week or seeing your application. So have a great day, everyone.
Thanks
Thank
all.
you. All right.
Thank you.